Welcome back to Best Practices in Teaching Online. This is the second video in this workshop series. And the goal for this session is thinking about building community in a fully online course environment, which may seem challenging, but using the technology tools that we have to your advantage can help you to do this in my opinion, sometimes even better than in the face-to-face space. So here's some ideas to get you started. Create consistent class routines. The best way to help build community in your class is to bake into your course design lots of opportunities for your students to engage, lots of opportunities for them to share ideas, lots of opportunities for you to check in with them, and make it all just part of your class routine. So by the time you get to week 5, when you say everybody's going to go out into a breakout room and do this thing, they're not groaning because they're used to you doing that a lot and they're ready for it. So some ideas I have. Bell work. Bell work is that task that your students are doing right before or as the class starts. So sometimes when you're teaching online and you're in a Zoom setting and people are coming in maybe 5 minutes before, maybe 3 minutes before, you should always try to get on to your Zoom call at least 10 minutes before your class starts for those people who come into that informal before class time space. Sometimes they have something they want to share with you. Sometimes they're just they're high anxiety students and they want to get there early and make sure that everything works for them. That's a great time to assign some bell work. And these are quick tasks that they can do while you're waiting for everybody to arrive. Muddiest points or 1-minute papers are great. And these are all coming from Cornell. Muddiest points are having your students share before your class even starts something that still feels muddy to them about what they did for class that day. So if you had them looking at stuff on your Moodle course before they arrived, or they watched some videos, or they read a very academic text, you might start with a muddiest point or 1-minute paper where they're just sharing what was still muddy for you. You can see the directions down here. What was still muddy for you? What's the most important thing you've learned? And I find that this is a really nice exercise to do right at the beginning of class, and creating that routine of doing it every single week gets them used to that practice, helps them to feel more comfortable and safe in that learning environment. When you've got consistent routines, your high anxiety students know what to expect and they can prepare for class. Like they know you're going to ask them at the start of every single class, how did your learning go this week? And they're ready for it. Breakout rooms. Do them in every meeting, even just a little short one. Collect evidence of their discussion out in the breakout room, and you can do this through a shared Google Doc, having someone be the note taker in the class and take notes. Sometimes you can use technology like Otter. Otter is an AI tool that will listen and transcribe a conversation, listen to and transcribe a conversation. So you can have someone in the group turn Otter on their cell phone and have it take notes of the conversation, which they then send to you so you have a transcript of it. Somehow you probably want to have a check-in with your students. And it can even be just like, when you come back, I'm going to give every group 2 minutes to share, assign someone who is the note taker and assign someone who is the sharer outer, the person who shares out to the rest of the class. But do breakout rooms in every single class so that they're used to that. And I've done it both ways, where I have the same breakout room for the entire semester. So they're like a tight little pod by the end of the semester. I've also just done let it randomly assign people. It depends on what your goals are and what you hope to achieve with your students. You can also just ask them, what's your preference? Ask them at the midpoint. So we've had the same groups all semester. Would you like to mix it up? Would you like to stay with your group? They'll tell you what they need and want. But do breakout rooms. The third one is active engagement. When you are asking your students to do something active in every single session, a few wonderful things happen. Number one, they get used to that routine of doing instead of just listening and sitting and being passive learners in your class. Research has shown that we all learn better when we actively apply and actively engage with the content and we're doing something. We can still learn passively by listening, but it's always better when we apply and we do. So it helps them to more deeply learn. And then it also helps them to have a consistent routine in your class. They know they're going to come and do something. So they're not going to show up and just be passive. They're not going to be inclined to turn off their videos and check out for a little while or leave if something happens to them. If they know you're going to ask them to actively engage, they will show up differently to that class. And having that as part of a consistent routine in your class helps to build that community. And again, you can do those consistent breakout groups, especially with active engagement. If you're asking them to do some sort of application, like, okay, so you learned this online before you came to class, and now you're going to get into small groups, and I'm going to give you a case study related to that, and you're going to work through that for 15 minutes. And when you come back, you're going to share. And then having that same group all semester, they get to know that that's part of your class routine and your teaching, and that's their group. And those connections grow really strong across a whole semester. So, actively engage your students. The next one is to be vulnerable. Probably in social work, you don't need this reminder, but you should feel comfortable sharing when your job feels hard, when you've had a tough week. Always around the midpoint, I would tell my students, woof, I am going through it right now. I've got 4 classes and I assigned a midterm paper in all of them. I am at capacity this week. Like, I'm very honest with my students because just as it is hard for them to be a student, it sometimes is hard for us to be faculty. And I feel like sharing that with them helps them to see us as more human. Also, alternatively, share when you're celebrating a personal or professional success. When I had my first publication, when I presented at my first academic conference, when I got promotion and tenure. These are things that I brought into the class that week, that day, and shared with my students, and we all celebrated. And the same way, I would invite them, like, who got an interview this week? Anybody have any job offers coming at them? Or did anything exciting happen to you in your life? Give them a chance to share, and also you share. A really big one is admitting when you've made mistakes and talk about how you're going to fix them. I make mistakes all the time. As a person, as a teacher, I make mistakes. It's just what I do. It's how we learn and how we grow. And so I am very comfortable saying, geez, guys, I wrote a really hard quiz. And I'm sorry that 2 of my questions didn't have great answers. I'm going to fix that. Thanks for your feedback. Let's talk about it. I would do that all the time and just let them know, like, it's okay to make mistakes. I'm modeling for them what I do when I make mistakes. And I'm not trying to like pick up the rug and dust my mistakes under it. I try to be really transparent with my students. Part of that is giving a survey around like the first 3 weeks of class, like a third of the way, a quarter of the way through the semester. Give them a survey and ask for their feedback. Find something that you can change based on what they say, and then come back and tell them about it. So it can be something as simple as like, how's my pacing in this class? Are there any accessibility needs that you have that I haven't thought of? How is the schedule for this class working for you? I've got assignments due on Fridays at 4 p.m. Is that okay for you? Like, ask them really specific questions about how the course design is going and the way that you're teaching and the moves that you have made in developing that class. Ask them really specific questions. And when they give you feedback, use it and tell them when you're using it. These are all opportunities for you to be vulnerable as a professor, for you to give up some of that control that feels comfortable for us, and allow your students to see that you do listen, you do care, and you will make changes when needed. The flip side of that is to make things playful too. So, we have a wonderful group of faculty fellows here at Nazareth, sort of in the Center for Professional Learning, Innovation, and Creativity, which I oversee. They're called the TIL Fellows. The TIL is the Teaching Integration and Innovation Lab, which was one of the things that I kind of took over when I moved into this position. And they are all committed, coincidentally, to the concept of playful pedagogies and playful learning. So you'll see some workshops and trainings come out from the TIL. and the Till Fellows. But these are some ideas that I have for making your teaching playful in these first critical couple weeks of the semester. Gamify it. Make a trivia game for your class to play. Come up with silly questions that are still content related. Do a read aloud. Everyone loves hearing a children's book read aloud. Like when we do that with adults, there's something really special that happens. So do that with your students. Find a text that's relevant and applicable and read it aloud to them or have one of them share in the reading with you. That's just really fun. Role play, have your students practice something in character. You can use AI to help you with this, but that can often feel kind of playful depending on the role that you're having them play. Have prizes. There is nothing more motivating than knowing that there's going to be a silly prize or a candy bar or like something goofy if they win whatever activity you're doing. Try to up the ante on activities or games by offering a reward. Use color. So this is a tool that I just discovered recently. It's called Whiteboard, and you all have access to Whiteboard through Microsoft 365. So if you go to Microsoft 365 and you log in with your Nazareth ID, everyone at NAS, faculty, staff, students, all has access to the basic suite of cloud tools. And one of them is this Whiteboard. So if I go back to Microsoft 365 here, I can show you. So it's m365.cloud.microsoft. And if you log in, this brings me to Copilot, which is the AI tool that Nazareth has for faculty, staff, and students. But if you're logged into 365, you can then see apps down here, and you've got access to all of these through your NAS ID. So please use them, explore them. I just discovered this whiteboard tool down here, and I have played with it a little bit and built some, but in this example, I'm going to show you this one. It is very basic. It's just a white background, and I put some directions in the middle that says, in a blank space on this board, wherever you want, draw to show how you're feeling about what you just learned. So let's say we just learned a really interesting, compelling thing, and I just want to stop and take a minute. A playful way to have your students reflect is to bring them to a digital whiteboard like this. And I'm going to move my Zoom tools. You can use the pen tool, which is here, so you can draw with a pen. You can use stickers, and there's many options of the pen. You can use stickers like a star if you want to star something. There are sticky notes that you can add. So if you wanted to say, this was interesting, you can do that. You can make them bigger, smaller, different colors, whatever you want. You can put a little quote bubble. You can just add text if you want. Hi. Maybe your students are not feeling super colorful or playful that day. You can also select more options. They can include a video. They can include an image from wherever they have on their computer. Or they can go out to the internet and search the Bing images that are available. But this is a nice space for your students to be able to express themselves in a different, more creative way while also at the same time. So everyone is on this board at the same time. And you can share it with them by clicking share. And you're going to want to add, because right now, the way this is set up is that it's for nas.edu folks. So you're going to want to change your settings and add your students by email. If you don't do that, they won't be able to access it because they're not in the same network as us. They're on mail.nas.edu, but you can just add them all right here by email and make it so that they can edit and then share it with them, and they'll all get access to your whiteboard. There are lots of settings that you can play with. The one that I think is really important to note is authors. So if you have show the note authors, any mark that is made on the board will get a little a little name tag stuck to it so you can see who wrote it. If you want it to be anonymous, you would just click that off and then they can put whatever they want and you won't know who wrote it. So pros and cons to both of those things. There's a background formatting. So if you wanted to go NAS purple, if you wanted to have lines for your students, you can play with the background formatting too. So this is whiteboard, and this would allow your students to engage at the same time, kind of on like a big poster, a digital poster. If you are familiar and still mourning the loss of Google Jamboard, this is a really nice replacement to Jamboard. And it will integrate with all of the Microsoft tools, and they have some really wonderful templates that are already provided. So if you want to do some brainstorming, if you want to do some problem solving with your students, if you've got compare and contrast or an exit ticket you want your students to do, these are all freely available templates that you can play with too. So use a digital whiteboard. The last one is a silent sort where you give everyone a card with information on it, or you give everyone a Google Doc and ask them to sort themselves without talking. So this would be challenging to kind of transfer to the online setting, but you could make it a Google Doc where they're all putting in information and they've got to figure out without talking how to sort themselves out. Or you could even use the whiteboard and everybody gets a sticky note and they can't speak, and the sticky note has information on it and they have to sort themselves out. I've seen people do this with birth dates. So you would have everybody put a birth date on a card and then they have to get in order without speaking and they can't show each other their cards. So a silent sort is a nice way to get your students playful and thinking as a team without actually talking, taking away that communication piece of talking and having them somehow do an activity. Okay, moving on. Another good idea to help build that community in your class, knowing that the most important connection is between student and instructor. If they don't feel like they know you and can connect with you, sometimes it's really hard for them to have community with the rest of the class. So I highly recommend meeting individually with your students and building it into the schedule of your class. I have done this where I take an entire week around week 6, 7, 8, like the midway point, and I say we're going to have no synchronous class this week. Instead, here's my appointment calendar. There are many slots. Everyone has to choose a 20-minute time slot to meet one-on-one with me. And the sole purpose is to just chat with them, to get to know them, to ask how they're doing. So if you place this early on in the semester, like week 2, 3, 4, you can really get to know your students quickly and learn more about their learning needs. If you place it at the midway point, you can kind of see how they're doing in your class, see if they need anything from you. It can be a great way to just check in, again, let them know that you're human. And then if anything comes up and they need resources, they need information, they need to be connected with academic support and accessibility, you can connect them. If you find out they've gone through a crisis and they need health and counseling, you can connect them. It's just a really nice way to get to know your students. This one is giving up some of the talk time in your class. And my suggestion here is to assign a student expert for every class session that you have. So we have 15 weeks in the semester, and say you've got 12 students, everybody gets a week. If you've got more than that, you might have two students to either partner up or each one gets 10 minutes of a class. You're not spending a ton of time doing this, but it really ups the ante for their active engagement and participation. So how this has looked for me in the past is I've had every student sign up early on in the semester to take a week, and they are the experts, and they get 10 or 15 minutes where they have to plan and prepare and facilitate a discussion. They might even assign a reading for everyone to do. I would meet with them in advance, maybe the week before or at the end of the previous class. I would pull the next experts together and we would meet and talk, and I would give them feedback and directions on how they're going to run and facilitate their session. Give them a set amount of time that is all yours. and don't let them go over it, of course, to keep it equitable, but give up some of the talk time in your class to your students who also come with their own expertise, background knowledge, and skills. This can make some of your students really nervous, but if you're in a professional program like social work or education, your students kind of need to be able to facilitate conversations like this, and letting them practice in the safe space of your class can really help them and also shows them that you acknowledge that they come with their own expertise and you're going to honor that and make space for it in your class. Highly recommend. Also, along that line is to trust your students. So, every now and again, my students were so used to in my flipped and online class, they were so used to in our Zoom meetings, me sending them out in breakout rooms. They had their pods all semester. They knew that they were going to be in a breakout room. They were ready. They told me by the end of the semester they loved their breakout room group. Every once in a while, and I would do a ton of like, fill out this Google Doc, you're going to report back. Now put in the chat, a chat waterfall. What was one word that described what you all talked about? Um, every once in a while, I would give them a really sensitive discussion prompt. Like we would watch a really compelling video or read a really moving story about a case study that was in the field or something difficult or hard or something political would happen that I want to address with them. So I give them a really sensitive discussion prompt, like what's filling your bucket right now, or what's draining your bucket, or how are you feeling about the world right now? Put them in a breakout room. Do not ask them to share out what they're talking about. Trust that your students, I wouldn't do this probably early on, but later in the semester, trust that they're going to engage with each other. Trust that they're actually going to talk. And by not asking them to share out, you build even more of their trust because you're showing them, I know that if I put you into this room, I give you a topic to talk about, and I tell you you don't have to share, you're still going to do it because I trust you. And we've built up that relationship in this class. So I do recommend that. Probably not every week, but later in the semester, a couple of times can go a long way to build the trust with your students. Okay, so that is the end of part two of this series. The next and last part is digging into some of the technology at Nazareth we have for getting the most out of your online class. How to engage your students, how to use technology as an instructor. I have lots of tips and tricks and many examples to share with you on this. So go ahead and head to the third video.